here we go. Hey everyone, and welcome to Commsverse. We've got another great session for you today, how to build a future-proof Microsoft Teams contact center. And here is your presenter, John Cray. And we will be taking questions at the end of today's session, as well as having the opportunity for you to join the post breakout rooms. So if you would like to ask additional questions or have further conversation after the presentation today, please join that. I will put the link in the Q&A as an announcement so you have that. So John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lori. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you virtually. Welcome to my home office here in the Chicago area. Hopefully the dogs will stay relatively silent for the next 45 minutes or so. So I'm sure every presenter has been saying the same thing at the beginning. We're living in very interesting times right now. And I think pretty much every aspect of our work lives have been impacted. And I think that's no more true even than in the way we do customer service, you know, with our businesses interacting with our customers. That has certainly changed as well. The way that we staff our people to serve those customers has changed. And I think Microsoft Teams is definitely changing the game in terms of how contact centers and customer service organizations can operate. So the intent of this particular session is to discuss really how Microsoft Teams and the contact center interact, how the two work together seamlessly, and how to build a Teams-enabled contact center experience in a way that we called it future-proofing, meaning that you are building it in such a way that it's going to survive all the changes that are coming down the road. Obviously, we're all getting very used to working virtually. The contact center, that's happening as well. Agents are now working from home. Supervisors and managers are working from home. They're now physically separate from each other. So how does that work? What does that mean? And how does that work in conjunction with Microsoft Teams? So that's the goal of the presentation. And with that, I will kick us off. Obviously, thanks to Commsverse and the team who've set up an amazing event. This has been going fantastic. So just wanted to put up the sponsors of the event. It's one of those slides that we put in all the presentations. And from that, we will dive into the situation or the presentation itself. So wanted to put this contact center Teams thing in the context of something that we can all associate with. One of the things that I think has been dramatically shifting in the COVID crisis is the way that patients and physicians have been interacting. There's been quite a bit of focus on telemedicine, on remote patient-doctor visits or patient-nurse visits and how that works. A lot of clinics and hospitals and doctors' offices have had to spin up telemedicine in a big hurry. So kind of using that as a little bit of a springboard into more of a generic discussion about the way contact center and Teams work together. So imagine this scenario. Imagine that a patient has recently had a procedure from their doctor from a hospital, and what's going to happen is the clinic, hospital, doctor is going to reach out to the patient via text, just asking how the patient is doing. So again, we have some kind of automated system in the background here that's composing a proactive question to the patient via their mobile, asking them, how are you feeling? And in this case, the patient is going to respond that they're having some pain. Now, why is that significant? Because even though that the initial outreach from the clinic in this case was a text message that was generated in an automated way, in other words, not from a human being, the automation could then recognize the word pain or the phrasing that the patient is using tools like Microsoft Azure Cognitive Services in order to deduce that there's a problem situation here that needs to be addressed by a human being. So once we recognize that the patient is actually experiencing some discomfort, we can then, via AI, direct that through some kind of intelligent queuing to a nurse. And in this case, the nurse is sitting there available as any contact center agent would be. In this case, they don't have to be sitting at their desk. They could be on a mobile device. They could be physically anywhere, but they get a notification that there's a patient waiting in queue and can then respond back. And immediately the nurse has context of what's going on with this patient. She gets a pop-up window that says, hey, I know they've recently been through surgery. They're experiencing pain. She can see the patient's response back to the text message on her screen. So she says, well, why don't I just jump to a video session? This was surgery. I can actually physically see the surgery from the patient's mobile device. Click on this link and show it to me. And in this case, we can launch Teams video. And now the patient and the nurse are interacting, and they can also continue the instant message or text messaging conversation in parallel with the video session. Patient can say, hey, is it okay if I take this medicine? Again, the AI can come into play to deduce, well, wait a minute, I know that that's contraindicated with the patient's other medications. So no, that would have a negative interaction. Can prompt the nurse with that information so the nurse doesn't have to look it up. And all that sort of AI can enable a more intelligent conversation between the nurse and the patient. But maybe something else has to happen here, something the nurse is not qualified to do. So the nurse also has access to the team of people that are this patient's team in the clinic. And she, if they're available, can actually bring other people in, a virtual team of sorts generated within the team's environment that can be brought into the conversation, and someone else, maybe a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant, can help the patient rewrap the wound and can proceed to actually treat the problem in real time. And then after all this is said and done, we start to roll up statistics and metrics from these kinds of interactions, and we can draw some intelligent conclusions like, what is the resolution rate of this nursing group that handles these patient interactions in real time? Or what is the level of satisfaction? We can send messages to the patient in the form of a survey and query their satisfaction with the way the interaction was handled, things like that. So all of that can kind of conspire together into some really smart metrics that can help the clinic, in this case, amp up their service and learn from the experiences of all these interactions across all the patients that they're handling across days, weeks, months of treatments. So what we're seeing here is quite a bit of stuff all wrapped into one use case or one scenario. We're seeing the ability to do what we call omni-channel interactions in a contact center. That's the ability to blend multiple forms of communication together, connected together. We used to call it multi-channel, but as soon as we could actually start intelligently connecting interactions, in this case, we connected a text message with a video call, with a collaborative call with other team members. We call that omni-channel because it blends everything together into one kind of experience for the end customer or patient in this case. So we've got that omni-channel experience. And at the same time, we've blended in the capabilities of AI in the background through cognitive services with the capabilities of Microsoft Teams to make this a collaborative experience. So when we did bring in that virtual team of people to help the patient, we were using the capabilities of Teams to do that. And when we sort of used the tools and capabilities to do video and chatting together, we were using the capabilities of Teams to do that as well. So it's this combination of Teams, AI, and interaction management all blended together that makes the contact center experience a more pleasant and a more successful interaction for the customer or patient in this case. So does this scenario just apply to healthcare? Well, no. I think we can all put this in the context of our own businesses. I'm in the technology business. Could I drive a customer service conversation with my customers that was enabled by AI to understand what they're really asking about, the nature of the problem set they're asking about? And also, could I use Teams to use collaboration, to bring in experts in the back office potentially to help in the conversation with the customer to amp up that customer experience? I absolutely could, and I'm in the technology business. Could it happen in financial services? Bring in a loan officer from the back office to close the loan in real time instead of waiting and delaying that thing, right? Could it happen in manufacturing or retail? In retail, maybe the customer's worried about a shipment or they have to do a return. Can I help the customer to do that using experts and things? Yes, I absolutely could. So the same use case, the same kind of scenario applies regardless of the market, the vertical focus that you have, the use cases that you have. It just applies to any kind of customer service, help desk, sales-oriented experience where you want to amp up that experience for your end customer. So we looked at it just from the perspective of healthcare, but it really does apply to so many different kinds of problems. So the way we make this work is a series of steps and a series of kind of modular pieces and components that are cobbled together to make this happen. And the whole idea is to integrate the contact center with Teams in a smart way so that it looks to the customer, to the agent, to the manager, as though it's one solution. First, we have to be able to support that omni-channel experience. The customer has to be able to navigate from the text message to the call, to the video call, add in, I'm sending an email with an attachment, whatever it might be, all within the context of one seamless experience. And in the case of Teams and Office 365, from the customer's perspective, they can just do that. Second, we have to be able to make sure that when it's a call or a video call or whatever, we can deliver that to an actual user of Teams. In this case, we're queuing and routing to an agent who handles the call. Can we do that successfully? We get that call connected and it shows up in their Teams client. So from that agent's perspective, they're living within the Teams application. And then I can tap into things like cognitive services. Does this have to be cognitive services? Could it be Google AI or IBM Watson? It could be any cognitive service, any AI-based engine that's able to understand what's happening in a text message or even the spoken word, translate that into text, and then map that into all the 1,000 ways that you can request a particular service or word a particular problem that you're having. And that's what AI is good at. It's good at interpreting speech and understanding the intent of what the customer is asking for, and then coaching that agent to enable them to deliver a better experience. And then can I bring in teams that are specific to that customer? Obviously, we're all used to teams working together kind of in a way that spans weeks or months of a team working together on a particular area, a project or whatever it might be. But could a team be created dynamically based on the patient's needs? Of course, and that's the idea behind Teams, is it's more than just teams that are long-lasting teams or invite a new person every week. It could actually be a team that's constructed on the fly in order to address a particular problem. And then I can then apply those metrics and analytics because I'm collecting a large amount of data. I'm collecting basic contact center information like how long did it take me to answer the call, how long did the customer wait in queue, and things like that. How long was the agent on the interaction? But I'm also collecting information based on the interactions themselves. I can interpret them. I can decide how many interactions were about this particular kind of problem. I can couple this with survey data to determine customer satisfaction levels. I can blend all that together into a single interaction analytics engine that provides very valuable insights to managers. So if you do these 5 things successfully, we think you've taken the contact center to a new level. It's more than just basic interaction handling and CRM ticket management. It goes beyond that to a dynamic, collaborative experience with the customer. Just really quickly, where is the boundary between what Teams does and what the contact center does? Well, we know that Teams is good at collaboration and communication. So it's good at the management of the team. It's good at the communications that the team uses to collaborate with each other. It's good at knowing when people on the team or in the back office are available through presence information and so on. It's also good at bringing the information, FAQs, web links, documents, and so on to bear so that the team all has access to a common repository of information. Where the contact center comes into play is then we take these kinds of interactions and we can intelligently queue them and route them in a universal queue with other forms of interactions as well. Emails coming in on Office 365, web chats coming in from the corporate website, instant messages coming in from Teams into a help desk, whatever it might be, social media messaging coming through Facebook Messenger or Twitter or WhatsApp. Whatever the channel of communication, the key here is to blend them into a single queuing mechanism and a single set of business rules so that you can decide on priorities. What is a higher priority than something else? An email commonly would be a lower priority because it's not a live real-time interaction. So it's okay to respond to an email an hour later, perhaps, whereas I want to take a call right now. We have customers, by the way, where email is their most important interaction type, and they want to respond to emails within minutes. And that kind of business rule can be set up, based on the kind of business rules you need for your own individual business. But the key is that this intelligent routing engine can do that and serve up interactions in real time to agents as we determine they should be fed in. And then there's all the other stuff that a contact center does that Teams on its own doesn't do. It's the productivity of agents. Agents work in a different way than a standard Teams enterprise user does. Agents go on break. They go on break for different reasons, and we want to track all those breaks and all those reasons they might. So they're not just going away or going unavailable from a presence perspective. They're going on a particular kind of break or dealing with a particular kind of work that we want to track in the context of the contact center operation. And then we want to bring in FAQ information, more than just the documents supplied by Teams, but other kinds of information like common responses. What are the same responses that agents are successful at using over and over again, and giving those to agents so that they can shortcut that piece of information that they need at the moment to give to that customer. So taking time off the call or interaction is a key thing that we try to do in contact centers, and we do that by empowering agents with a lot of information. Then we have to worry about recordings. In some cases for compliance or legal reasons, we have to record every call, every interaction. We have to do that. We have to evaluate those interactions, potentially to make new agents better at their jobs, to use recordings of great calls so that we can coach agents using examples of what a great call sounds like. All those kinds of things are part of the contact center, again, layered on top of the basic Teams capabilities in order to deliver a true collaborative customer service experience. Wanted to quickly talk about where the contact center space is going, and then tie this back to where this sort of Teams contact center experience can go to next. So there's a survey done, it's pretty much done annually by a company called Dimension Data, big systems integration company, worldwide global company, and they do a global survey of the people that run customer experience for their customers. So it might be the head of their customer service organization, it might be their CIO or CTO, or even a CXO, a customer experience officer, is now coming up more and more in businesses, someone who actually owns the successful experience between a business and their customers. And they asked this question. They said, what three things are most likely to reshape your customer experience capability during the next 5 years. And they got almost 1,000 responses. You can see it down at the bottom of the screen here. They got about 925 responses. And the top 2 in the list were the ability to do intelligent analytics, to visualize the data in intelligent ways, and to apply machine learning and AI to the problem of customer experience, meaning I'm going to provide information to customers from an AI engine that's valuable to them so that they can maybe not have to talk to an agent. They can do everything through self-service. And I'm going to coach my people to deliver smarter and smarter responses to those customers. One of the key trends that we're seeing is agents are getting smarter. So agents are no longer dealing with the commonplace questions like, what's my account balance, or what are your store hours? The things that can easily be answered via self-service are now being answered by self-service more and more. So that means agents have to be able to deal with more complex problems, and applying intelligence and coaching to help those agents deliver a better response to those customers is a key aspect of where we're seeing the industry going. So I provided a link up there on the upper right part of the screen. Be able to get a copy of these slides or watch the recording of this session, and you can click on that link, and that link will send you to that full dimension data report. A lot of very interesting information in there. Enghouse also has a pretty cool report that we sponsor from a company called Contact Babel, which has a huge number of statistics about the contact center industry as a whole and where the industry is going, trends, what percentage of contact center directors are prioritizing AI or analytics or other aspects of contact center trends that they're moving forward with. So there's some really good data out there if you want to benchmark your own contact center versus where the industry is going. So the DI Data survey is one of those nice little sources of information. So what does this mean? So if analytics and AI are 2 areas there that the industry is heading forward in as a key trend, then how do we use those? If we're talking about coaching an agent using an AI-based engine, what does it look like to that agent? Well, one way of making it a seamless experience for the agent is by actually blending the coaching into the Teams user experience. So one thing Teams has is the ability to use these adaptive cards within the Teams framework. So if we're listening into the conversation with the customer and we can detect things that the customer's saying that might help the agent to deliver a better experience, we can then, in the middle of the conversation, pop up or populate these adaptive cards with information. In this case, we're looking at a help desk conversation, and we're going to provide instructions for how the agent can help the customer do a password reset. It's a very basic use case, but in this case, we know that it's something that we easily have in the form of common responses, FAQs. We can easily provide that in the context of the conversation to the agent and help them. We can obviously do that with much more complex use cases as well by interpreting what the engine believes the customer is asking for and then providing that information in real time as the agent needs it. So here's the instructions for the password reset. You can see we have the live conversation going on in the upper left, and we've got this ability. Similarly, through adaptive cards, we could wrap up the call. The agent could provide information on the level of customer satisfaction, all while living within this Teams user experience. Now that's one option. There are many options here, but it can be a combination of the tools that the agent uses to be productive, coupled with Teams that the agent is using to sort of navigate through a very productive conversation with the customer. And that's one of the nice things about this user experience is it can be customized based on how the specific contact center operates and the information needed by agents in order to help customers in real time. What about the management tools? We talked about analytics as a key area where contact centers are focused as we go forward as a market trend. So what does that mean in terms of the management experience for the contact center? Well, here we're actually taking a look at a Teams embedded experience for supervisors within the contact center. So we're looking at the ability to, Teams has a nice tab-based extensible architecture where we can stick a user experience, as long as it's a web-based experience, inside a Teams tab so that the manager in this case can live inside Teams. So remember that supervisors commonly manage a team of people. So the Teams concept applies to the contact center very, very cleanly. So the supervisor lives within Teams anyway. They're used to communicating with their team as a team within Teams. So it makes sense then that they can also see metrics real time about their team displayed within the Teams environment as well. And so this is that kind of blending of the Teams capabilities with the contact center capabilities, trying to make it as seamless a user experience as possible for the manager. So here we're seeing in the case of these little red columns, we're seeing alerts that are firing in the contact center right now to tell us that we've got too many calls waiting in queue, or a call's been waiting longer than our service level, and we have to get to those calls quickly. The supervisor can take action. They can bring more people into the queue. They can send alerts out to their agents. Hey, get on this. We've got alerts firing. We need to get on this to keep our service level successful, and all of that. And simultaneously, I can see my agents and what they're doing right now in real time, all while living inside Teams. And if I want to get more sophisticated about it, I can then actually embed, and this is the future of our own application we're looking at here, I can embed a complete analytics engine within Teams, including dashboards that are interactive. So in this case, I'm looking at the performance of a European-based contact center environment. I'm looking at right now their outbound services. So they're making outbound calls to their customers, and I'm seeing how many interactions they handled per unit time. I'm seeing where the hotspots are. The red circles indicate hotspots where I might want to pay more attention because maybe it is a bad service level. Whatever you want to kind of view on a map or in a histogram or a bar chart or a graph or a table, you can do within this dashboard experience. And then you can drill down. So I see that red hotspot over Milan, and I can go hover over Milan. I can see the statistics for Milan and then drill down into that particular location to see the details. Why is it a hotspot? What's going on? Why are alerts flashing in that area? And that kind of thing. So analytics are changing to reflect not just the basics, not just show me by day what my service level was, but show me right now what's going on in the world and let me interact with the data to try to deduce where the problems are coming from and why I'm experiencing problems in my contact center environment. And again, this is coupled with Teams. So the interactions are all Teams-based interactions. We've embedded our analytics engine inside the Teams user experience, and the manager can kind of live within that experience and understand and get insights into what's happening in their customer service organization as a whole. So the idea here is we are blending the capabilities of Teams with the capabilities of interaction management in the contact center. By the way, CRM comes into play as well, where we're seeing how well tickets are being handled, what my service level or response time is for that as well. That can be blended into the analytics views. So I'm starting to get smarter and smarter through integration, and I'm starting to build an experience that will benefit the agent, will benefit the manager, and in the end will benefit the customer. The happy agent equals the happy customer. It's a mantra that we've all been using for a long time. If you can empower the agent with tools and intelligence to make them smarter, to let them deal with more interesting customer problems, they will be happier and more empowered. That will then translate to customers being happier and more empowered. We see this every single day. You can actually track the fact that increased agent satisfaction in the job directly translates into better survey results from your customers. And so this is the kind of integrated tool set and capability that we wanted to bring together. And again, Teams, fastest growing unified communications platform in the world, incredible growth. This changes the game, I think, for the way customer service will operate in the future. So, wanted to open it up in the last 10 minutes or so that we have to any questions that folks might have. And if you haven't, you can chat them in, and our moderator will provide them to me, and we can handle any questions you might have at this time.
Thanks, John. So the Q&A is open. So if you have any questions, go ahead and jot them in there now, and we'll give it a minute and let you all put your questions in there.
While we're waiting for those, just a little link down at the bottom of the screen there. If you guys are interested in what you've seen here or any other aspects of Teams and Contact Center working together, happy to provide insights for you. Happy to even allow you to participate in a trial if you'd like to see our applications or see kind of how we tackle these problems. Let us know. Contact us via the link, and happy to help out with that. Also, as Lori was mentioning, there's a little breakout session right after this presentation. It's in your invite to the presentation, so if you click on that breakout meeting, we can join you there and answer any further questions or more deep discussion in that breakout as well.
Great. So there are a couple questions here. The first one is, thank you. A lot of companies have moved to work from home agents with the COVID situation. Do you think companies will remain home-based after COVID?
So I think we are getting indications. We've actually been talking to our own customers about this, and we are getting indications that people believe this is a permanent change, not to the level or degree that we're seeing right now, of course. There will be people going back to offices, but there will be quite a bit more focus on the ability to work from home for employees, but also for contact center agents. There are some statistics. That Contact Babel survey that I mentioned earlier is run in the US and in the UK. And I think it was well over 60%, even before COVID, of 60% of contact centers had some work at home presence. I think that's gone up now close to 100% because obviously we've had to do it. I think now that we've proven that it's possible, more and more agents will be allowed to do it. More and more managers will be working remotely. So the answer is I do believe it's a permanent change. I believe we'll swing back somewhat, but will we ever swing back to the everyone sitting in one physical office location for every one of the contact centers around the world? I don't believe we will. I think this is something that we've all learned from, and we've all learned something very positive, which is the equipment, the internet is capable of handling communications to our home pretty well, and very high quality communications, and we're able to serve our customers pretty well in distributed environments. So I think it's a permanent change.
All right, the next question is, how will AI in the contact center become more advanced as companies increase use of cognitive services?
So we saw some use cases here in this presentation where we were listening in and coaching agents on kind of easy to find things. Like we saw the word pain in a text message, and we deduced from that that the patient was in discomfort and we needed to queue and route the interaction to a nurse who could help them in real time. We saw a password reset where a customer was requesting, can you help me reset my password on this application? Those are pretty basic. We can almost do that with keyword searching and looking for a particular phrase within the communication. I think what we're seeing now is that AI is allowing us to be much more sophisticated in what we derive from the conversation. So we're seeing the ability, for example, to see all the different ways that a customer can word a request. I was at a presentation last year where one of the hotel chains in London had implemented AI, and they'd implemented an automated assistant that could handle the 200 most common requests from people who stayed in the hotel. 200. And it took them 18 months to get there, a lot of tuning, a dedicated team of people tuning the application to make sure that they were handling all the different ways that someone could word, how long is room service open, or can I get fresh bedding sent to my room? What time is checkout? There's so many different common requests in a hotel, but there's so many different ways you can word these things. And the AI engines are getting very, very good at guessing what the customer means based on their wording. Now there's manual intervention required where you have to tune things, but I think we're going to see this becoming more and more prevalent. And whereas before it took us maybe 18 months to tune something, it's going to get faster and faster over time as the engines get smarter. So I think that's the case. The other thing is in analytics, we're seeing AI applied to these live interactions where they can be passed through an engine. The engine can break the communication apart and look at main topics and look at emotionality of customer responses. So how does the customer feel? Number one, they're talking about this particular problem set. And number two is they're upset about that area. We can say, 84% of customers are upset about the company's returns policy. We can start drawing conclusions from the data by listening into interactions. And that trend is something we're going to see more and more.
All right, the next one. Wouldn't managing agents be more difficult when they're working from home? And second part, would reliance on assistant bots make the agents more lazy and inexperienced?
So maybe the second part first. We don't think the bots make them lazy. In fact, we think the bots empower agents. So we think the bots actually make them more engaged. And this is the kind of thing that we're seeing. By the way, it doesn't have to be a bot. It could be something as simple as a set of common responses in a response library. It could be something as simple as omni-channel interaction, where the agent is empowered to take a chat and turn it into a video call. It could be anything that gives the agent more capability. Instead of making the agents then rely on the technology more and get lazier, it actually makes them more engaged and feeling more empowered. And I think that's a really key critical thing. In terms of, sorry, what was the first part of that question, Lori?
So the first part was, wouldn't managing agents be more difficult when they're working from home?
Right, so managing. So I hope we've seen a little bit demonstrated in the presentation here, some examples of where managers are empowered, even though they're remote from those agents, to see in real time what agents are doing. One of the key aspects of good contact center management is to be able to see the analytics, not only historical analytics, how many calls did an agent handle yesterday, or what was the average talk time. Things have moved on now to much more sophisticated analytics about what the success rates of agents are, and how well the agents in a particular queue are handling the service level goals of that queue, and things like that. So we're starting to see that that managers or supervisors can see those analytics in real time and then act on them. And that's the other side to this. It's not just a passive view of the data, it's an actionable view where they see that there's a problem and they can then immediately hover over and act on that, whatever it might be. Maybe they take something out of maybe there's no agents logged into a queue and they activate a message, an automated message that says, I'm sorry, please leave a message and we'll deal with it as soon as we can. if it's a snow day or whatever it might be. There's an emergency situation. Those kinds of actionable things are things that the supervisor or manager needs to be able to do. Those can be done just as well remotely as they can if the manager is literally sitting there right next to the server or right next to the agent. And I think because agents are now working from home more, they're more used to their supervisors and managers reaching out to them remotely. Does that mean agents are slacking off on the job? I don't think that's happening because we have that visibility into what they're doing. And again, they're feeling empowered and they're feeling like they can take a break and be in their homes when they do it. It's actually kind of makes the agent environment better and actually empowers them to work harder. So I think from a manager perspective, it's pretty much a good thing.
The next one is, do you think video calls will become more prevalent after the adoption of Teams by more contact centers?
We do. We're seeing it's happened slowly though. So we think now with COVID, we're all getting used to doing all of our meetings over video. A lot of us are, right? Something that we don't always turn on the camera, but we do a lot of the time now. We're more collaborative, and Teams is allowing us to do that very, very effectively. And then share information back and forth, right? So that video is becoming a part of our way of life. And what we found with contact centers is that when something happens in one area of a business, over time it tends to creep into the contact center. So we saw this with the prevalence of social media and text messaging. We saw the ability for customers to collaborate in different ways with the contact center. That crept into the contact center. Now we think we're going to see it with video. Initially, it's for specific use cases. It's for things like maybe a high-end financial services organization that wants to have a personal relationship with their customer, or the healthcare scenario with telemedicine. We're definitely seeing it apply there in the near term. We think, though, that it's going to start spreading into more use cases for retail, that personal experience to close the sale. Potentially, it's going to be in pretty much all the markets that we play in. It's just going to take time to get there.
All right, and then the last question, since we can't do everything at once, what steps would you recommend to get a fully Teams-enabled contact center? What should we do first?
So we always say start with the basics. Start by having your agents using Teams and your contact center integrated in a basic way so that we can get calls queued in the contact center application, deliver them to your Teams client, let the agent answers the call, make sure that we provide the agent with the productivity tools they need to do their jobs, and just make sure that they are used to using Teams and the contact center together. Get that successful first, and then we can start applying some of the more advanced capabilities that we've talked about today. So we've talked about the application of cognitive services. That's a big deal. So you've got to sort of define narrowly the set of use cases that you want to apply cognitive services to, very narrowly, so that you can then sort of get those right before you expand to a broader reach of use cases. Similar to the way you engage Teams collaboration into the back office. Get the basic communications working, then start to think about the use cases where you could engage people together as a virtual team to help the customer. So the kinds of concepts we've been looking at are maybe a little bit more forward-looking today. So start with the basics, get communications working first, and then broaden to the more collaborative, intelligent experience that we've been discussing.
All right, well, that does it for questions, John. Thank you so much for getting through those, and thank you everybody for attending today. Any closing remarks, John?
No, I thank everybody for being here. Again, this will be recorded, so you can reach out to us for the recording or get it through the Comsverse folks. And thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. It's been a great experience. And again, I'll be in the breakout session after this if anybody wants to chat in further detail, or use the link to reach out to us for more help or discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. The link there is in the Q&A to join in the breakout, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, John, for presenting. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.